everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're going to be a craftier person after watching this video. Bank screws old lady. Lawyer screws bank. Old lady gets millions back. Posted this on Ask Reddit a while back and somebody suggested I should cross post it here. Financial advisors employed by a pretty major bank stole all the money of a wealthy old lady who was dying of Alzheimer's, and she didn't know anything until her lights were cut off. My brother was a pretty small-time lawyer and got the call to represent her. Every other big-time attorney in the area had either passed on the case or tried and failed to get anywhere. When you're up against a legal team that makes a collective $10,000 an hour, it's not easy. And since banks also have mandatory arbitration clauses worked into their contracts, she couldn't sue or even do discovery. Like, it was obvious what had happened, and the only people with access to the account were clearly implicated, but A, it was hard to prove without any access to bank records, and B, under arbitration it wouldn't matter anyway. They could be criminally prosecuted but the bank wouldn't have to pay back the money. Did I mention the bank had, at this point, frozen the lady's access to her own accounts due to fraud, so she couldn't even get her own bank statements? Anyway, my brother became pretty obsessed with avenging this woman. By the time he got the case, she barely even knew what her own situation was most of the time. But her son just wanted to make the bank bend over, and my brother was all in. He managed to find an incredibly obscure technicality that nullified the arbitration clause, and was able to force a major bank into the discovery process. That alone was a huge enough deal that the decision was written up in many legal newspapers across the country. After fighting and delaying discovery until the very last minute, the bank dumped 200 plus boxes of documents on my brother the Friday before the Monday discovery hearing. He had 72 hours to go through tens of thousands of pages of documents. He rented himself a hotel for the weekend so he'd have no disturbances, had a friend bring a dolly and hand truck the boxes to the hotel room, and got to work. In one of the boxes was an email between a bank VP and the bank's chief lawyer. I incorrectly described this as two VPs in my previous post, discussing how there would never be a discovery process so there was no need to destroy documents, i.e. future evidence, and also saying that they weren't worried about the little old lady's lawsuit since the bank had frozen her accounts, so she wouldn't be able to pay her lawyer and he was just a small-time country lawyer, their words, who would surely quit once he wasn't being paid. It wasn't like he worked for some huge firm that could just pay his bills while he worked. They also discussed how the lady would likely die of Alzheimer's before her accounts would be unfrozen once the fraud was proven to be false. They had my brother all wrong, of course. He was working all day on paying cases and then staying up half the night working on this one, sometimes without getting paid anything for months. We did the math later. He made about $2.75 an hour for his work over a span of 7+ years. Anyway, these chuckleheads openly discussed several illegal acts in emails to each other and then failed to destroy the paperwork proving they had actually undertaken those acts, which legally they could have destroyed at the time, but they were so arrogant they thought they didn't have to. When my brother entered that into evidence Monday morning, they immediately motioned for a recess and offered to settle for an undisclosed sum. He also won his client $10 million in a separate part of the lawsuit. One agent recently finished serving a long sentence in the same federal prison as Bernie Madoff. He also lost his home, the beach home he bought with the old lady's money, had his financial broker license revoked and his wife left him. However, his kid did get a private college education paid for in cash with the lady's money, and he bought $200,000 worth of wine that was never recovered. Sadly, the lady did in fact die before the case settled, so the money went to her son and to a large charitable trust that then elected my brother as the main trustee, so he gets to disperse the money he won in the settlement and see a lot of people benefit from his work. The funniest part of this revenge was that the apparent motive for the theft was not just that the agent wanted to be rich, he had accomplices but he was the main mastermind. He specifically wanted to use the money to enhance his standing in the community. So actually, he donated a lot of the stolen money to charities so that he could be invited to huge galas, get philanthropic awards, etc. Now he is broke, unemployed, divorced and disgraced, while my brother is going to galas and getting philanthropic awards with the money this guy helped pay for with the sale of his houses, cars, etc. Pretty sweet. ETA, I feel obligated to spread the anti-arbitration gospel of my brother. If it weren't for a fluke technicality that led to the boilerplate arbitration clause being thrown out, there would have been no discovery and no justice for this lady. Under arbitration clauses, you're not allowed to sue a bank, brokerage, financial advisor, etc. And without a lawsuit, you can't do discovery, and financial agents cannot be forced to pay you back for money they steal, even if you can prove they stole it. In this case, discovery led to evidence of tax fraud on the part one of the agents who stole the money and didn't report the income, and the feds then gained a lot more access to the records. In conclusion, arbitration benefits the corporation 98% of the time, at the consumer's expense. Opt out whenever possible. Job site scum finally gets what he deserves. This story occurred a little over a year ago while working for a heavy construction company out of North Carolina. They had a guy who ensured we followed safety protocol and essentially had his word over anyone, meaning if he saw something that was unsafe, he had the authority to stop work. We all agree to what he has to say, even though it's a pain in the butt, but because Occupational Safety and Health Administration fines are ridiculous and the cost of life is even more. However, this guy constantly abuses his power on the job site, threatening employees with write-ups if they didn't do certain illegal favours for him, such as buying him weed, pills, anything he could get his hands on. He was a jerk. Not only would he put employees in really uncomfortable situations, we were all drug tested by this guy routinely, and he knew at least those of us who passed time and time again did not do this stuff. Moreover, he had ridiculed me on the job site in front of everyone one day and nothing happened. He made fun of me for an hour and a half till I finally flipped on him and got suspended for 2 weeks because he was secretly videoing me. He only showed the portion of the video where I told him to blank off and flicked him off. One day he tries this junky crap with me because I had hopped onto a machine and had not filled out the inspection sheet. The machine was not on, and its bucket was on the ground. To fill out these inspection sheets, you must be in them off. One day he's steering, etc., and it's standard protocol. I turn on my phone's recorder out of his visual field as I'm about 5 feet up above him in the driver's seat. I recorded everything he said. He threatened me with immediate dismissal for doing my job, saying, "Looks like you were out of the machine, with it running bucket in the air. Your inspection sheet is not filled out, and I really don't know what we're going to do here." He then smiles and says clear as hell on the recording, "If you get me half an ounce of good weed, this won't go any further. But this is looking like you're fired. You have to the end of the week or I'm filing the report." I met up with my direct supervisor who also despised this guy and we devised a plan. Tell him I'll have it for him on Thursday at the gas station a few miles from the job site. Meanwhile, I was to stay out of his visual field while my supervisor sat in my car. Had tinted windows and you could see someone in the car but couldn't see any feet. This guy would get into the car and his boss would be sitting in the driver's seat of my car. It worked perfectly. He was told that his recording was more than enough to ruin his entire life, but that losing everything in his company account before being fully vested was more than enough. Also that he should not bother collecting his things at the site because, as per contract, all work badges are to be taken upon dismissal, and since he was not dismissed at work, he had no way of getting through the gate of this place. Not sure if they mailed or gave anything back to him, but everyone on the site was so much happier with our new safety officer. He understands production and safety and has a good medium. He'll work with you. And he's not a complete junkie in charge of drug testing people anymore. Okay, so that's all for r/ProRevenge. I really hope you did enjoy this one. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!